War is an expression of pain and suffering. You cannot harm another unless you have already been harmed yourself. It is a lashing out, a retaliation. It is a fear of not being loved, of not being lovable. It is the fear of rejection. It is the expression of rejection. It is the no one can love the monster I am. So I will show them how much of a monster I can be. It's the pain of unfairness. The pain of not being heard, not being seen. It is the demand to be heard and seen. It is the consequence of turning off from the pain of others until that pain comes back and hits us in the face. It is the consequence of taking at the expense of others, of living in greed, in gluttony. It is the consequence of closing off, disconnecting from the pain around you. When you cannot hear or feel or see the silent pain, it needs to come back at you in a roar, in an explosion, in a bomb that tears your life apart to make you stand up and notice how much pain you are causing to others. It is the reverberation of pain throughout the world. War is just the ringing of the bell to say, do you realize what you are doing, what you have been doing in the way you treat each other? War is the expression. The horrors of war are the expression of the dormant monsters, the dormant fears, the dormant pain that lies within all of us. How do we stop it? By being seen, being heard, by having a voice, by saying, ouch, that hurt me, by acknowledging what we do unthinkingly to others, by reconnecting, by learning compassion, war is the expression of the bullied. It is the explosion of the pain of the people who have been suppressed. The terrorist is the mouthpiece of the pain. It is the cry for help, the suicidal attempt to stop the pain. The pain is inflicted by not caring, by ignoring, by turning a blind eye, by not seeing. It is walking past the person in need and being too busy to help. It is saying, "Not my problem." It is being cold to the cry for help from others. It is the systems that inflict pain deliberately on others when really they were designed to help. It is the lies, the cheating, the stealing, the disregard, the machine that drives over humans in its desire to make roads for the rich and famous to drive upon. It is the disregard of human rights, of the human plight, of nature, of the bees, of everything that has been given to you, and you have no gratitude for it. It is the taking without gratitude, the expectation of more than you need. War is the man who does not want to work for a living, and so he takes from another. It is the man who creates illness so that he can make money out of the cure. It is the man who creates lack so that he can make money out of feeding that lack. It is the man who creates a bomb so he can explode people for the fun of it, just because he does not feel loved and so cannot love others. It is the man who hates his mother, and so he blows up villages of mothers and children and does not care, because if he can't have a happy family, no one else can. It is the man who feels unseen, unwanted, unloved, and so he does not see, does not love, does not want other people. He's quite happy to blow them up. War is no longer about protecting your family. That is just an excuse. War is an aggression. It is taking your lack of love into another community and destroying that community so that they can feel your pain and your suffering. There is never any justification for controlling another community, because they were never going to invade you. They were busy living their own lives. And if you believe that they were trying to destroy you, you have created that myth to justify going out and hurting them. Russia is not an aggressor. It is a defender. The USA is the aggressor who has been systematically going around the world and taking over regimes for its own purposes. It had an ego that said, we need to control the world to be safe. We were conquered by colonialism, and now we need to conquer everyone else so that we can be safe. It was the fear of invasion, the fear of not being wanted, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough. And so it needed to become a superpower that everyone else turned to protect them or to fear them because they wanted to be the police of the world. But they were not mature enough to do this in a benevolent way. They did it to continue their ancestry, their ancestral trauma of conquering for resources. So the trauma of being conquered for resources became the motivation of conquering everyone else for resources. They cannot allow any new regime or culture to emerge that could possibly threaten their own. They need to be the elite, the all-powerful, because they are still in that young ego stage, thinking that they must protect themselves by owning everything, owning all the politicians, owning all the resources. The European Union lives in fear, collective fear of not being enough. The old families that held the wealth of the free world, that had the power, the Rothschilds, feed these systems to orchestrate power games. They see the US as their puppet. They can manipulate the young mind by telling it to go and kick in someone's door for them, and they will be a hero because of this. Russia and China are sick of these old world mentalities trying to dominate and manipulate the world for their ego. And so they have combined to fight back, to prevent the total occupation of the world by the greedy. Africa is an old warrior race that were gods in the past. They go back to the Anunnaki, and their power was taken from them. They were told they could not rise up, and yet they are being called upon again by Russia and China to rise up and defeat. They have a battle to overcome their own corruption from the Anunnaki, their own desire to be gods. The priestesses will need to rise again. The priestesses will rise as women in minority groups to demand compassion and human rights. The priestesses and their followers will become a movement to take their rights back, to live with compassion and connection to each other. The men will learn to protect the priestesses and their followers and the children, instead of conquer and destroy. The men will learn to stand at the boundary as protectors, not as jailers, not as conquerors, but as the wall between the greed of the heartless. The women will build the new communities based on connection, inclusiveness, love and compassion. The men will stand around the walls protecting them and helping them rebuild their communities. And the greedy and heartless will be given an option to walk away, or they will be forced into isolation where they cannot harm. They will go to another planet and will not be allowed to return. It will become a prison planet. The warrior of the Africans, the Middle East, the Arab nations, the Chinese, the Russians will all rise up to protect the women and children, to restore the priestesses, because the men know that they cannot be trusted to be totally in charge because of their egos, that they need the priestesses to guide them and to rebuild the communities that they have lost. The wars will not stop, but they will change in nature. Once the communities are destroyed and people have nothing left to lose, they will rise up, join together, and create a new world of community, expanding out and pushing back the greed and corruption of the conquerors. Conquering will become a dirty word. Taking resources from others will be forbidden. Eventually, America will become a barren land with small, isolated communities of self-centered people. China, Russia, Africa, and the Arab world will be the new community of connectedness